Conclusion. Callback to main value proposition. Social proof, loyal insiders. Call to action. Reference to another video on cold reading. Warning about power of techniques. What if you could predict their next move and guide their actions without them suspecting a thing? Imagine walking into any room and instantly knowing who's nervous, who's interested in you, and who's hiding something. These aren't superpowers. They're skills anyone can master with the right knowledge. Today, I'm revealing 12 body language tricks that will transform you into a genius manipulator in any situation. These aren't random tactics. They're proven techniques based on human psychology and nonverbal communication patterns that most people aren't even aware they're displaying. Every trick in this list serves a specific purpose. Some help you identify emotions, others reveal hidden intentions, and the most powerful ones actually influence behavior. The further we go, the more control you'll gain, building from simple observation techniques to methods that border on mind control. We'll start with something seemingly innocent, dropping a pen. But what this simple act reveals will blow your mind. Nervous people can't hide from this trick, instantly exposing themselves without saying a word. It's a perfect entry point into the world of nonverbal manipulation. As we progress, you'll learn to decode what someone truly feels about you just by noticing which way their legs are crossed. You'll spot liars through their involuntary blinking patterns. You'll even discover how someone's coffee cup position reveals whether they're interested in talking to you or secretly wanting to create distance. These techniques work because most people are completely unaware of how much information they're broadcasting through their body language. While they carefully choose their words, their bodies tell the real story, and now you'll know exactly how to read it. By the middle of our journey, you'll be picking up on subtle signals that others miss entirely. That slight pause someone makes at a doorway, it reveals internal conflict. The position of someone's chair, it tells you whether they're engaged or planning their escape. These insights give you tremendous advantage in any social situation. The final tricks are so powerful, they'll feel almost like mind control. You'll learn how to use strategic silence to make people reveal more than they intended. You'll discover how to test someone's trust levels with a simple request. You'll even master the technique for distinguishing between genuine smiles and fake ones, never being fooled again. But I need to warn you, with great power comes great responsibility. These techniques aren't meant for manipulation that causes harm. They're tools for understanding human behavior more deeply, improving your social intelligence, and yes, gaining a certain level of influence in your interactions. The truly dedicated among you will be rewarded with bonus techniques after the main list. These are the advanced methods I typically reserve for my most committed students. Psychological tactics that give you even greater insight and control in high-stakes situations. So get ready to dive deep into the world of nonverbal communication. By the end of this journey, you'll never look at human interaction the same way again. You'll pick up on signals others miss completely, understand motivations that remain hidden to most, and possess the ability to guide conversations and relationships with subtle mastery. Let's begin with our first technique. A simple yet powerful way to spot the most nervous person in any room. Your brain is far more than just an organ. It's a biological supercomputer with capabilities that exceed any technology humans have ever created. What makes this supercomputer truly remarkable is its ability to rewire itself, forming new neural pathways in response to experiences, thoughts, and mental exercises. This neuroplasticity is the foundation of genius, but most people never learn to harness it deliberately. Enter hypervisualization encoding, the secret operating system that powers the minds of history's greatest thinkers. Einstein, Tesla, Da Vinci, they all access this hidden mode of cognition, often unconsciously. But you don't need to be born a genius to use this system. You just need to understand how to activate it. The first key technique is thinking in movies, not sentences. While average thinkers process information as internal dialogue, essentially talking to themselves, exceptional thinkers convert concepts into rich mental simulations. When you encounter a new idea, don't just describe it to yourself. See it, feel it, manipulate it in your mind's eye. This activates vastly more neural networks than verbal processing alone. For example, when considering a business strategy, don't just list the steps. Visualize the entire process unfolding. Anticipate obstacles appearing and imagine solutions emerging. This creates a mental rehearsal that prepares your brain for actual implementation. Try this right now. Take a current challenge you're facing and transform it from words into a detailed mental movie. Notice how this shifts your perspective and reveals solutions previously hidden. The second key technique is the what-if method. Genius-level thinking begins when you challenge assumptions. Most mental limitations exist because we've accepted artificial boundaries. Einstein discovered relativity by asking, "What if time isn't constant?" Edison found the light bulb material by asking, "What if we try 1,000 different filaments?" Start applying this to everyday situations. What if your biggest problem is actually your greatest opportunity? What if the conventional approach is completely wrong? These questions force your brain to explore uncharted neural territory, creating new connections that can lead to breakthrough insights. The third technique involves training with impossible questions. When you confront your mind with problems that seem unsolvable, it doesn't simply give up. It begins forming new neural pathways in the attempt to find answers. Questions like, how could I solve this problem with zero resources? Or, how would I approach this if I had unlimited time and money? Create productive cognitive dissonance. This discomfort is actually your brain rewiring itself, strengthening connections between previously unrelated concepts. Implement this by dedicating 10 minutes daily to contemplating questions that initially seem unanswerable. The solutions you discover will often be applicable to real-world challenges. The final technique is entering overload mode by deliberately exposing your brain to contradictory information. When you study opposing viewpoints on a topic, your mind initially struggles with the conflict. But this tension forces your brain to develop more sophisticated models of reality. Read authors you disagree with. Explore perspectives from different cultures. Study disciplines that seem unrelated to your field. Then, rather than choosing one viewpoint, practice synthesizing these oppositions into more comprehensive understanding. This is how true innovation happens. Not by selecting the best existing option, but by creating entirely new possibilities that transcend previous limitations. These four techniques together form a powerful system for rewiring your neural architecture. Practice them consistently, and you'll experience a profound shift in your cognitive abilities, accessing levels of insight and creativity previously unavailable to you. Ever felt like someone wanted to bolt out of a conversation, but wasn't saying it outright? We've all been trapped in those interactions where we're desperately looking for an escape route. But what if you could identify when others are doing the same to you? That's where the chair angle trick comes in. A powerful yet subtle technique to gauge someone's true desire to stay or leave. Here's how it works. Take a quick glance at how the person's chair is positioned relative to you. If their chair is angled toward you, they're engaged, comfortable, and happy to continue the conversation. Their body language is saying, "I'm here and I want to connect with you." This alignment shows genuine interest and involvement in what you're saying. However, and this is where it gets interesting, if their chair is angled slightly away from you or toward the nearest exit, you've discovered a subconscious signal that they might be ready to leave. Even if they're nodding and smiling, their body is betraying their true intentions. Why does this work so effectively? Our bodies often reveal what our words don't. When we're genuinely interested in someone or something, we naturally align ourselves with the object of our attention. It's a primitive, unconscious behavior dating back to our earliest evolutionary stages. We face what matters to us. Conversely, when we're mentally checking out of a situation, we start creating physical distance. The chair becomes the first indicator of this shift in attention. What makes this trick particularly valuable is how unconscious it is. Most people aren't aware they're repositioning their chair when they're losing interest. It happens automatically. While they might control their facial expressions or verbal responses, the chair position remains an honest signal of their internal state. For maximum effectiveness, Combine this observation with other body language cues. Are their arms crossed? Are their feet pointed toward the door rather than toward you? Is their body leaning away? These additional clues reinforce what the chair is already telling you. They're disengaging from the interaction. This technique works brilliantly in business meetings, networking events, dates, and casual social gatherings. Knowing when someone is mentally checking out gives you tremendous power. You can either gracefully end the conversation before it becomes awkward, shift topics to something more engaging, or directly address their discomfort if appropriate. The chair angle trick transforms you from someone who blindly continues talking to a disinterested audience into a perceptive communicator who can read the room and adjust accordingly. It's like having a real-life status bar for someone's attention. And once you start noticing it, you'll be amazed at how clearly it speaks. Ever noticed someone hesitate at a doorway before entering or leaving a room? That tiny pause, often lasting just seconds, might seem insignificant, but it can reveal volumes about what's happening in their mind. This is called the doorway pause hack, and it's a subtle but powerful trick to understand what someone is really feeling beneath their composed exterior. Here's how it works. When someone pauses at a doorway or threshold before entering or leaving, it usually means they're mentally hesitating as well. This could be because they're second-guessing a decision, have something unresolved they want to say or do, are unsure about their next move, or feel uncomfortable with the situation they're entering or leaving. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Doorways aren't just physical structures, they're psychological transitions as well. We humans tend to compartmentalize our experiences by location. When we move from one space to another, our brain naturally creates a mental shift. That's why sometimes you walk into a room and forget why you came there. You've crossed a mental threshold. This same principle creates a moment of heightened awareness at doorways, where our subconscious briefly surfaces. If there's internal conflict or uncertainty, it manifests as that slight pause, a physical hesitation that mirrors the mental one. What makes this hack particularly valuable is that it reveals emotions people would otherwise keep hidden. Someone might maintain perfect composure throughout a meeting, but that momentary freeze at the doorway afterward tells you they're conflicted about what just happened. A person might seem confident about attending an event, but their pause before entering reveals the anxiety they're trying to conceal. This technique works in countless situations: business meetings, social gatherings, personal conversations, even watching how family members enter or exit tense situations at home. It's a window into someone's true feelings when their guard is momentarily down. The pro tip that takes this technique to the next level: if you spot this hesitation, don't rush them or ignore it. Instead, use the opportunity to gently address what might be causing it. A simple "Is everything okay?" or "Did you want to discuss something else?" can open the door to conversations that might otherwise never happen. By paying attention to doorway pauses, you're picking up on emotional signals that most people miss entirely. These small moments can reveal internal conflicts, unspoken thoughts, and hidden feelings, making them invaluable tools for understanding what's really happening beneath the surface of your interactions. Ever caught someone resting their hand on their chin during a conversation and wondered what they're really thinking? Are they deeply considering your words or silently judging them? The hand-on-chin signal is one of the most common yet misunderstood body language cues, appearing in meetings, conversations, and presentations worldwide. But knowing how to properly read this gesture gives you a powerful window into someone's true thought process. Here's how to read it accurately. When someone places their hand on their chin, they're definitely in evaluation mode. But the critical difference lies in their facial expression. If their expression is neutral or relaxed, perhaps with slightly raised eyebrows or a soft gaze, they're likely deep in thought, genuinely considering what you're saying. This is the contemplative version of the hand-on chin. However, if their brows are furrowed, their lips slightly pursed, or they have a subtle frown while holding their chin, you've caught them in judgment mode. They're not just processing your information, they're critically evaluating it, finding flaws, or silently disagreeing. The psychology behind this gesture is fascinating. The hand-on-chin position is a classic pose of contemplation dating back through human history. Think of Rodin's famous sculpture, The Thinker. When we place our hand on our chin, we're physically supporting our head while our brain does heavy mental lifting. It's a natural position we adopt when we need to concentrate. What makes this signal particularly valuable is that it appears when people are at their most analytical, when their critical thinking is activated. By watching for this cue, you can identify exactly when someone shifts from passive listening to active evaluation of your ideas. This technique is invaluable when presenting ideas, pitching proposals, teaching concepts, or having important discussions. By identifying when someone enters judgment mode versus contemplation mode, you can adjust your approach accordingly. If you sense judgment, you might want to address potential concerns before they're voiced or ask for feedback to bring hidden doubts into the open. The pro tip that takes this technique to the next level. If you notice the judgment variation of the hand-on-chin, don't get defensive or push harder. Instead, try saying something like, "You seem to be considering this carefully. Any thoughts or concerns?" This invites them to share their evaluation rather than keeping it private, transforming potential silent criticism into constructive dialogue. By mastering the hand-on-chin signal, you gain insight into the precise moment someone moves from hearing your words to forming opinions about them. This awareness allows you to guide the conversation more effectively, address concerns proactively, and ultimately increase your persuasive power. Want a quick and subtle way to test how much someone trusts you? Try the pen borrowing trick. It's deceptively simple, takes just seconds to implement, and reveals more about your relationship dynamics than you might imagine. This technique works because it transforms an abstract concept, trust, into a measurable behavior that anyone can observe. Here's how it works. During a conversation, casually ask the person, "Hey, can I borrow your pen?" Then closely watch their reaction. If they hand it over quickly and casually without hesitation, they likely trust you on a fundamental level. But if they hesitate, seem reluctant, or make an excuse, "It's almost out of ink," or "I need it right now," it might indicate they're feeling uncertain or guarded around you. Why does something as trivial as lending a pen reveal so much? Because lending anything, even something small, requires a tiny leap of trust. It's an instinctive response that bypasses our conscious thinking and taps directly into how comfortable we feel with someone. When we trust people, small requests feel effortless. When we don't, even minor requests trigger subtle resistance. What makes this technique particularly powerful is its everyday nature. Unlike direct questions about trust, which people can easily answer dishonestly, this behavioral test flies completely under the radar. Most people have no idea their reaction to a borrowed pen reveals anything about their feelings toward you. The applications are endless. Use it with new business contacts to gauge how your relationship is developing. Try it with team members to see if recent tensions have affected their trust in you. Use it in personal relationships when you're unsure where you stand. It's especially valuable when dealing with people who are difficult to read or who keep their feelings hidden. The pro tip that takes this technique to the next level. Use this trick sparingly and in casual settings. If you ask to borrow someone's pen multiple times in a short period, they'll become suspicious. Also, consider the context. If someone is in the middle of writing something important, their reluctance might be about timing rather than trust. For an advanced variation, pay attention not just to whether they lend the pen, but how they do it. Do they hand it directly to you or place it on the table and slide it over? Do they watch to see what you're doing with it? Do they ask for it back immediately? These subtle behaviors provide even more insight into their comfort level with you. By mastering the pen borrowing trick, you gain a simple yet powerful tool for measuring trust in any relationship. It transforms an invisible emotional state into observable behavior, giving you valuable information that can help you navigate relationships more effectively. Ever looked at someone smile and thought, "That doesn't seem genuine"? Your instincts were probably right. The ability to distinguish between real and fake smiles gives you an extraordinary edge in social situations, allowing you to see through polite facades and identify true emotions. This is the fake smile test, one of the most reliable ways to spot the truth behind someone's expression. Here's how it works. When someone smiles genuinely, the entire face becomes involved in the expression, especially the eyes. Look for the formation of crow's feet, those small wrinkles at the outer corners of the eyes. In a genuine smile, the orbicularis oculi muscles contract involuntarily, creating these characteristic lines. The eyes themselves will appear slightly narrowed, with a warm, engaged quality. The cheeks lift naturally, and there's an overall harmony to the facial expression. A fake smile, however, is all mouth. The lips might curve upward in the correct shape, but the eyes remain unchanged, flat, expressionless, or even contradicting the smile with tension or coldness. This disconnect creates that uncanny, insincere impression we can often sense, but might not consciously identify. Why does this distinction exist? The answer lies in our neuroanatomy. Genuine smiles, sometimes called Duchenne smiles, named after the 19th century French neurologist who first studied them, are controlled by both the voluntary and involuntary nervous systems. The voluntary system handles the mouth movements, while the involuntary system controls those crucial eye muscles. When someone feels authentic happiness, both systems activate simultaneously, creating a harmonious expression. Fake smiles, by contrast, typically engage only the voluntary nervous system. The person consciously moves their mouth into a smile shape, but since they aren't experiencing genuine positive emotion, the involuntary system remains inactive. This creates the telltale mismatch between the upper and lower face. The power of this technique is its near-universal reliability across cultures, ages, and contexts. While other aspects of body language can vary significantly between individuals and cultural groups, the Duchenne marker of genuine smiles remains remarkably consistent worldwide. Even small children and very elderly adults display the same patterns. Use this skill in countless situations. Business negotiations to gauge honest enthusiasm versus polite agreement. Social gatherings to identify who truly enjoys your company. Dating scenarios to assess genuine attraction. Customer service interactions to determine satisfaction levels. And even in personal relationships to recognize when loved ones are masking their true feelings. The implications extend beyond mere detection. Once you recognize a fake smile, you've gained valuable information. Perhaps the person is being polite but feels uncomfortable. Maybe they're masking disappointment or disagreement. Possibly they're attempting to manipulate through false friendliness. In each case, your awareness allows you to adjust your approach accordingly. Developing this skill requires practice. Start by studying the expressions of friends and family when you know they're genuinely happy versus when they're just being polite. Watch how their entire face transforms in moments of authentic joy compared to social smiling. Notice how movie actors, even excellent ones, often struggle to create truly convincing smiles in emotional scenes, particularly in their eye regions. The pro tip that elevates this technique: don't immediately react or call attention to a fake smile you've detected. Instead, use this information strategically. If someone's giving you a fake smile during a presentation, for instance, you might need to address unspoken concerns or reservations they have. If a friend offers a fake smile when discussing a sensitive topic, it might indicate discomfort worth exploring gently. For an advanced application, track the smile patterns of important people in your life over time. You'll develop a personalized baseline for each individual's expression style, making your readings even more accurate. Some people naturally smile more with their eyes than others, while some have more subtle crow's feet, even when genuinely happy. By mastering the fake smile test, you'll never be fooled by surface-level expressions again. You'll see through the social masks people wear and perceive the emotional truths they might prefer to keep hidden. In a world where authentic connection is increasingly rare, this ability to discern genuine emotion from performance gives you not just social advantage, but the opportunity for more meaningful human interaction. Ever notice someone tapping their foot under the table during a meeting or conversation? That rhythmic movement, often barely perceptible, reveals a wealth of information about their emotional state that their carefully composed face and measured words might completely hide. This is the silent foot tap, a powerful window into hidden anxiety, impatience, or emotional intensity that provides extraordinary insight into what someone is really feeling. Here's what to look for. The key pattern is rhythmic, repetitive movement of the foot. It might be a subtle up and down motion, a side-to-side tap, or circular rotation around the ankle. The movement is often unconscious. The person usually isn't aware they're doing it. Most importantly, the intensity and speed of the tapping directly correlate with their level of internal tension or emotional arousal. A slow, steady tap might indicate mild impatience or low-level nervousness. A rapid, intense tap suggests significant anxiety, stress, or emotional agitation. If the tapping suddenly starts during a specific topic of conversation, it likely signals that this particular subject triggers emotional intensity for them. Why does foot tapping reveal so much? The explanation lies in how our bodies process excess emotional energy. When we experience anxiety, nervousness, excitement, or impatience, our sympathetic nervous system activates, releasing adrenaline and creating a surge of energy. This physiological response once prepared our ancestors for fight or flight, but in modern social settings where both fighting and fleeing are inappropriate, that energy needs an outlet. The body instinctively channels this excess tension into small, repetitive movements, with the feet being the most common location because they're furthest from the face, where we focus most of our conscious control. While someone might successfully maintain a calm facial expression and steady voice, their feet often betray their true emotional state. What makes this technique particularly valuable is its reliability across different personalities. Even highly controlled individuals who rarely show emotion in their faces or voices will often unconsciously tap their feet when experiencing internal tension. For people who pride themselves on their poker face, the silent foot tap might be the only outward sign of their true feelings. The applications of this observation technique are virtually limitless. In negotiations, watch for increased foot tapping when discussing specific terms. It reveals which points create tension or discomfort. In interviews, foot tapping might indicate topics that make the person nervous. In personal relationships, it can signal unspoken anxiety about particular subjects. In group settings, it helps identify who in the room is feeling uncomfortable even if they're not speaking up. The pro tip that takes this technique to an advanced level. If you notice someone's foot tapping, consider gently addressing their possible discomfort without directly mentioning the behavior. You might say, "I sense there might be some concerns about this topic. Would you like to discuss them?" Or, "Let's take a quick break before continuing." This approach acknowledges their feelings without embarrassing them about their unconscious behavior. For truly sophisticated application, track patterns across conversations. Does a certain colleague always tap their foot when discussing deadlines? Does your friend's foot start moving whenever a particular person is mentioned? These consistent patterns reveal deep-seated emotional triggers that might otherwise remain hidden. However, a critical caution: context matters. Before drawing conclusions, consider alternative explanations. Some foot tapping might be due to physical restlessness rather than emotional state. Certain medications can cause restless legs. Some people tap along to music playing in their heads. And individuals with ADHD often use repetitive movement to help maintain focus. Look for patterns and correlations with conversation topics rather than isolated instances. By mastering the observation of the silent foot tap, you gain access to emotional information that others miss entirely. You'll detect anxiety before it's verbalized, recognize discomfort that might never be expressed, and develop a deeper understanding of how different topics affect the people around you. In social and professional situations where understanding unspoken emotional dynamics is crucial, this awareness provides a significant advantage. I've saved this technique for my most dedicated followers, those who understand the responsibility that comes with advanced psychological influence. The strategic silence is perhaps the most powerful conversational tool in this entire collection, using the profound discomfort of extended silence to extract information, confessions, and revelations that would otherwise remain hidden. This technique isn't for casual use, but for situations where uncovering deeper truth is essential. Here's how it works. After asking a direct, probing question, say absolutely nothing. Maintain steady, non-threatening eye contact. Keep your facial expression neutral but attentive, and simply let the silence expand. Don't nod, don't make encouraging sounds, don't fill the gap. Just wait with calm expectation. What happens next is remarkable. Most people will become increasingly uncomfortable as the silence extends past the normal conversational rhythm. This discomfort creates an almost irresistible urge to fill the void. They'll often begin elaborating on their initial answer, adding details they hadn't planned to share, revealing inconsistencies in their story, or even directly contradicting their first statement. The psychology behind this technique is fascinating. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, and conversational turn-taking is deeply embedded in our social programming. When one person stops speaking, the other feels an obligation to respond. When that expected exchange is disrupted by extended silence, especially when combined with continued attention, it creates significant psychological pressure. This pressure is particularly intense when someone feels under scrutiny or evaluation. The silence seems to demand more information, more explanation, more justification. The longer it continues, the more powerful this sensation becomes. Even people who initially intended to withhold information or present only a partial truth will often find themselves revealing more than they planned. The applications are powerful, but should be used ethically. In professional settings, this technique can help uncover hidden concerns during negotiations, reveal the real reasons behind a client's hesitation, or expose underlying issues a team member is reluctant to discuss. In personal relationships, it can create space for important truths to emerge when someone is holding back significant feelings or information. The dark tip that makes this technique even more potent: subtle physical adjustments can dramatically amplify the effect. Leaning forward slightly during the silence conveys increased attention and interest. Raising one eyebrow suggests skepticism about what's been said so far. Tilting your head slightly indicates you're evaluating the response. These minimal movements increase the psychological pressure without appearing aggressive or confrontational. However, this technique comes with important ethical considerations. While powerful for uncovering truth, it can feel manipulative when used inappropriately. Reserve it for situations where greater honesty serves both parties, helping someone express concerns they've been hesitating to voice, uncovering problems that need addressing, or creating space for authentic communication when surface-level conversation isn't sufficient. Use this technique sparingly. Overuse will make people uncomfortable around you and damage trust. It's most effective in one-on-one settings rather than groups, where the silence might be filled by someone else. And timing matters. A strategic silence after a significant or emotionally charged question is far more effective than random silences throughout a conversation. For those ready to master this advanced technique, practice is essential. Begin with shorter silences, just a few seconds beyond the normal conversational rhythm, and gradually extend them as you become more comfortable with the tension they create. Pay close attention to the types of information that emerge during these silences, and learn to distinguish between productive discomfort that leads to important revelations and excessive pressure that could damage rapport. By wielding strategic silence skillfully, you gain access to a level of truth and authenticity rarely achieved in everyday conversation. You create space for deeper connection, more honest communication, and insights that might otherwise remain unexpressed. Used with integrity, this technique doesn't just give you influence. It helps create the conditions for genuine understanding. For those who've stayed with me through all the previous techniques, I'm sharing one of the most powerful methods for detecting deception: the detail follow-up technique. Unlike obvious signs of lying that people have learned to control, this approach exploits a fundamental limitation of deception: the cognitive load required to maintain consistency in fabricated details. Here's the technique. When you suspect someone is lying about an event, story, or excuse, don't challenge them directly. Instead, express interest and ask casual, innocent-sounding questions about specific details, especially peripheral ones that seem unimportant to the main narrative. Oh, what time did that happen? Who else was there again? What was the weather like that day? What did you do right before that? These questions should be asked conversationally, with genuine curiosity rather than suspicion. Watch carefully for how they respond. Truth-tellers typically answer such questions easily and consistently, even if they sometimes need to think or admit they don't remember certain details. Their answers tend to include specific sensory information and spontaneous corrections or clarifications. Liars, however, often display a characteristic pattern. They might hesitate before answering, as they need to fabricate details they hadn't prepared. They might become defensive about why you're asking. They'll frequently give vague or overly general answers to avoid committing to specifics. Or, paradoxically, they might provide excessive details, far more than the question requires, in an attempt to sound convincing. Most tellingly, if you circle back to the same details later in the conversation, their answers often change in subtle or significant ways. Why does this work so effectively? Fabricating a convincing lie is cognitively demanding. When someone creates a false narrative, they typically focus on making the main elements sound believable while giving little thought to peripheral details. When suddenly asked about these unplanned aspects, their brain must quickly create new fabrications while maintaining consistency with their original story, a task that requires significant mental resources. The truth, by contrast, doesn't need to be constructed or remembered. It can simply be recalled. When someone is telling the truth, questions about peripheral details don't create the same cognitive strain or hesitation. The applications of this technique extend beyond catching outright lies. It helps identify exaggerations, half-truths, and situations where someone is presenting assumptions as facts. It's valuable in professional settings when evaluating reports of incidents, assessing project status updates, or investigating workplace issues. In personal relationships, it can help clarify miscommunications and establish more honest interactions. The dark tip that makes this technique particularly effective: keep your tone casual and interested rather than confrontational. The key is to avoid triggering defensiveness. Ask questions as if you're simply trying to understand or appreciate their story better, not as if you're testing them. This approach keeps their guard down and makes inconsistencies more likely to emerge naturally. For sophisticated application, space your detailed questions throughout the conversation rather than clustering them together. This makes it harder for someone to maintain consistent fabrications, as they may forget exactly what they said earlier. Additionally, mix questions about details you already know the answer to with ones you don't. This helps establish a baseline for how the person responds when definitely telling the truth versus when potentially lying. The ethical dimension of this technique is important to consider. Use it to uncover significant deceptions that impact your life, work, or relationships, not to expose harmless white lies or embarrass someone publicly. Once you've identified a likely deception, consider carefully how to address it. Sometimes, creating an opportunity for honest communication is more valuable than confronting the lie directly. By mastering the detail follow-up technique, you develop an extraordinarily powerful tool for detecting deception that works even on skilled liars who can control the common tells. You'll identify inconsistencies that others miss, recognize patterns that signal fabrication, and develop a more accurate sense of when you're getting the full truth versus a carefully constructed narrative. In a world where deception is unfortunately common, this ability provides both protection and insight. You've reached the end of our journey through these 12 mind-reading tricks, plus the 2 bonus techniques reserved for those dedicated enough to stay until the end. By now, you understand something that most people will never grasp. Human communication extends far beyond words. The true language of interaction lies in the subtle signals we broadcast unconsciously through our bodies. The techniques I've shared aren't just interesting psychological observations. They're practical tools that give you remarkable power in every social interaction. Think about what you've gained. The ability to instantly identify the most nervous person in any room with a pin drop trick. The capacity to influence agreement through micronods. The insight to decode someone's true feelings about you through their leg position. The skill to detect deception through blinking patterns. These are abilities that most people will never possess. Each technique serves a specific purpose in your social toolkit. Some help you read emotional states that others try to hide. Some reveal intentions that would otherwise remain concealed. Others allow you to subtly guide and direct social interactions. Together, they transform you from someone who merely participates in social dynamics to someone who truly understands and navigates them with precision. Remember the progression we followed? We started with simple observation techniques like the pin drop and gradually advanced to more sophisticated methods of reading nonverbal cues. Then we moved into more powerful techniques for gauging emotional states and hidden feelings. Finally, we reached the most advanced level, methods that actually influence behavior and extract information others don't intend to reveal. This progression wasn't random. These techniques build upon each other, creating a comprehensive system for social mastery. The chair angle trick helps you know when someone wants to exit a conversation. The doorway pause reveals mental hesitation. The hand-on-chin signal distinguishes between contemplation and judgment, and the pen borrowing trick tests trust levels. The fake smile test lets you distinguish genuine emotions from performative ones, while the silent foot tap helps you detect hidden anxiety. And for those of you who stayed, my loyal insiders who recognize the value of these advanced methods, the bonus techniques represent the pinnacle of social influence. The strategic silence leverages people's discomfort with conversational gaps to extract revelations they never intended to share. The detail follow-up exploits the cognitive limitations of fabrication to uncover deception that most people would miss. These aren't ordinary social skills. They're advanced psychological tools that put you in a different category of social awareness. You're now part of a select group who understands these principles. While others stumble through social interactions blind to the signals all around them, you can see the hidden patterns, read the unspoken messages, and navigate with unprecedented clarity. This isn't just about gaining advantage. Though that certainly comes with these skills, it's about understanding human behavior at a fundamentally deeper level. I need to emphasize an important point. With great power comes great responsibility. These techniques give you unusual insight into others' emotional states, intentions, and even their attempts at deception. Use this knowledge ethically. Don't exploit vulnerabilities you discover. Instead, use your enhanced awareness to create better connections, resolve misunderstandings before they escalate, and help others feel genuinely understood. The greatest masters of these techniques don't use them to manipulate. They use them to build authentic relationships based on deeper understanding. For those ready to take their skills even further, I've created an advanced training on cold reading techniques. Cold reading is the next level beyond what we've covered here. A set of methods that allow you to appear to know things about strangers that should be impossible to know. It's a powerful complementary skill set to the body language techniques we've explored today. But I must warn you, that training isn't for everyone. The techniques I teach, they're dangerously effective, so powerful that I honestly don't recommend them for most people. They require a level of ethical maturity and responsibility that not everyone possesses. If you've resonated with what you've learned today and you're committed to using these skills ethically, you'll find a link to that advanced training below. Just don't say I didn't warn you about how dramatically it might change your perception of social reality. What separates those who merely know these techniques from those who master them is consistent practice and careful observation. Start implementing what you've learned immediately. Drop a pin in your next meeting and watch who reacts first. Notice the chair angles of people in your next conversation. Pay attention to genuine versus fake smiles at social gatherings. Each observation builds your skill, and each successful application reinforces your ability. The most valuable aspect of these techniques is how they compound over time. Individually, each one gives you a specific insight. Together, They create a comprehensive system for understanding human behavior that few people ever achieve. When you can simultaneously track foot tapping, chair angles, facial expressions, and vocal patterns, you're operating on a completely different level of social awareness. Remember that moment at the beginning when I asked, what if you could predict their next move and guide their actions without them suspecting a thing? That's no longer a what if. It's a reality you now possess. You have the tools to read minds, not through mystical powers, but through careful observation of the signals people constantly broadcast without realizing it. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the hidden language of body language and psychological influence. For those who truly understand the value of what's been shared here, welcome to a new perspective on human interaction, one where the unspoken speaks volumes, and where you never again have to wonder what someone is really thinking or feeling. The world of genuine mind reading is now open to you.